top 50 most influential Indians living abroad. And that's because from 2003, and of course maybe for other reasons, but one reason is from 2003 to 2008, he was appointed to be the first ombudsman to the USCIS, and that was under the newly founded Department of Homeland Security. And in that capacity, he grew that department, or I guess that office, to I think over 24 individuals who now help support the ombudsman, the current ombudsman. So in his role working with CIS, he was able to advise the government on just about every level, from cabinet, even through all the different agencies of the United States government, the consulates, and just has had a great opportunity to have an impact in this current immigration environment. So he's a very appropriate person to talk about policies and immigration under the current administration. Also has experience working with Walt Disney as leading their immigration department for several years. And as I understand, he was actually the youngest attorney appointed in the state of Florida, which is where he obtained his law degree. Prakash, appreciate your comments, and everybody else on the panel will be hearing from them as well shortly.
Good afternoon. I am really excited to be here this year, especially this year. I was able to join the president in Mumbai and in Delhi as part of his presidential executive delegation, and I have never been as excited as I was this time. Being an Indian American, coming with the president to the U.S., to India, but more importantly, at a time when the president recognizes that India has now come of age to where they're co-equal in the group of nations, and that we are not looking at India from a standpoint of a third world nation or a fourth world nation that it was seen as a few years ago. The economic maturity has come such a long way that today, where India has one of the longest historical traditions of all kinds of things that they have given to the world, which the president actually acknowledged in a number of his speeches, which I'm sure all of you heard, so I'm not going to regurgitate. But what was most impressive was that he was speaking from the heart, but most importantly, Barack Obama has been influenced, as he said many, many times, by Mahatma Gandhi and his whole vision of what a nation should be. And so we're at a point here, within 4 days after the president leaves, we have this conference. And the conference, the focus of the conference is really how do we move to this next stage in the whole process of partnering with the United States. And many of you here have been doing your part in making that attempt to open the door and to ensure that you walk through the door and don't fall into that trap, or as the gentleman earlier showed, the crocodile routine. And the challenge for each of you has been, and I know because as part of the administration, the previous administration, one of the challenges that I faced was obviously an immigration system that needed to be overhauled. And for my part, I feel that I did my part in at least contributing to some extent to that. But there is a lot of work to be done from this point forward. India has traditionally been seen as I indicated, the third world nation, and has been treated in the immigration rules in that manner, so that a greater percentage of applicants who applied were actually subject to denial, as the records have shown. But why was that the case? Basically, U.S. immigration law has a very interesting approach sending people overseas, one of the key elements is that you're presumed to be an immigrant unless you can prove to the satisfaction of the consular officer that in fact you are not an immigrant. So that when you walk in, they look at you as an immigrant. You're applying for a non-immigrant visa. And how do you convince the consul